Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our Small Business Town Hall. The program will begin right in 5 minutes, right at noon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Selena Pena, and I'm the Chief Advancement Officer of Lift Fund. If you joined our morning conversation with small business owners, or even if you didn't, they shared their journey of 2020 and their vision of 2021. And it's easy to see why small businesses are fighting to not only survive, but thrive. We see every day in our communities and even on the panel that small businesses embody courage, innovation, resiliency, and a positive mindset to tackle any barrier they face. With 2021 around the corner, we can do our part in helping small business, and that is what this panel is about. 2021 and beyond, this panel is going to be a reflection of economic trends, policy, and advocacy, and we have a great group of leaders in their field ready to share their insights. I'd like to pause a moment to thank our sponsors. This session is made possible by the generosity of our Connect sponsor and partner, SWBC, our advocate sponsor, Broadway Bank, and our inspiration sponsor, Trans Pecos Bank. Thank you for your support and supporting small businesses. Let's hear from our Connect sponsor, the President and CEO of SWBC Life Insurance Company, Joan Cleveland.
Hi, I'm Joan Cleveland, President and CEO of SWBC Life Insurance Company. I want you to know that SWBC is honored to be part of this wonderful event, and we are proud to support our client Lift Fund and in turn all that they do to support diverse small businesses in our community. SWBC co-founders Gary Dudley and Charlie Amato truly understand the impact that small businesses have on our economy. As it has for the past 45 years, SWBC continues to be committed to helping small businesses thrive by offering quality products and services to help protect these businesses and their employees. From life insurance to protect assets to health benefits to protect employees, SWBC is here to see you through.
Thank you to Joan and the entire SWBC team for your support. Like everyone's 2020, it has been monumental. Here at Lift Fund, in Texas, and around the country, it's had extreme highs and extreme lows. As a team, internally, and even probably yourselves, we've pivoted accordingly. From lending only to recovery lending and grant making with local and national partners, from counties, municipalities, and finance organizations stepping up to the plate to help small business. This year, we've deployed over $86 million in loans and grants. And to give you perspective, in 2019, we deployed only $29 million. We were able to do this again with amazing partners. And we believe that today, and what we'll listen to, is really a reflection of making the case for a small business agenda. No segment of our economy has been more impacted than the 50% of employers who are small and micro businesses. Many who are minority, women, veteran-owned, and even rural businesses have been tremendously impacted due to COVID-19. Think about that. Half of the US workforce, and even more so in Texas, employed by small businesses. And that is why we are having this important discussion with these important panelists. The first I'd like to welcome and thank for joining us is Representative Cristina Morales of District 145 in Harris County. She is a Democrat, a small business owner as CEO of Morales Funeral Home, and is in her second year in the Texas legislature. Thank you for joining. Representative John Rainey of District 14 in Brazos County is a Republican in his 10th year in the legislature. He too is a small business owner founding Aggieland Bookstore in College Station 50 years ago as a student at Texas A&M. Blake Hastings, a great friend of Lift Fund, is a senior vice president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, overseeing the San Antonio branch and all Federal Reserve activities in Central and South Texas. Also with us and leading the effort in this conversation is Jonathan Gerwitz, vice president of KGB Texas Communications. Jonathan, welcome, and thank you all for joining. The floor is yours, Jonathan.
Thank you, Selena. Thanks to the panelists, and thanks for everyone for joining us today. As Selena mentioned, both of the state representatives are small business owners. So I want to start with the two of them and ask you, as small business owners, what does that mean to you on a personal level, and how does that affect your perspective as a legislator? And Representative Morales, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here. I have always enjoyed being a small business owner. I especially love that I was able to take over a business that was founded by my grandparents. It was a huge head start to take over an existing business, but over the last 30 years or so, I put my own spin on things. And I have said before that being a funeral provider in many ways has prepared me to hold public office. I'm prepared to help people during the best and worst of times. And just a business owner, I'm used to working 24/7. So in the last few months, I've talked to many small business owners, and there are so many varying levels of loss and success during this difficult time. Many have stayed open, especially those that provide essential services like my business, and some have had to shut their doors for a short time or indefinitely. There's no doubt that this has been a financial burden to operate during COVID-19. We've all had to purchase and provide PPE to not only our staff, but probably our clients, adjusting to a virtual work environment, purchasing equipment like such as laptops, thermometers, hand sanitizer dispensers. In our business, we've had to purchase audio-visual equipment. Some small business have had to deal with employees getting COVID-19 and trying to make sure they don't give it to the other employees. I've even talked to families who have had to take over a small business after the death of an owner from the virus. So in the coming months before the session starts, I plan to visit with more small business owners and take what I've learned to do what I can to make sure that small business owners have the resources they need to get through this difficult time and explore ways to jumpstart our economy in the coming year.
Thank you, Representative Rainey.
Well, I would say thank you for having me today, and it has been a difficult time for all of us who are small business people. We've had to be closed for a couple of weeks, although we were still selling stuff on the internet. Let me just say one thing for the benefit of everybody that's on this call. Shop locally. This pandemic has made millions of dollars for Amazon and other large online sellers while your local community is suffering. And that runs downhill. When a small business in a community, you lose the sales tax. If they go broke, you're going to lose the property tax. It's a continuous thing that affects the community. Amazon doesn't give any money to the kids at the school who are in the band or on a drill team or whatever, but the small business people in the community do. And I'm very supportive of small business. One of the things that we have around here that's been affected is the bars. And I don't particularly go to bars because it's just not my thing. But what I have discovered during this is that college students, of course, do go to bars, and that's why I'm saying it. There are one of my friends is involved in one, and he said, or two of them actually, he said his rent for those bars, and he was closed about 6 months, I think they're open some now, was $31,000 a month. I don't know how in the world anyone recovers from that. But yet, restaurants who have to make sure that next session that bars, regardless of whether they're operated in a restaurant or singularly, should be treated the same. We need to help these folks that have invested their livelihood in these small businesses and help them recoup or at least survive this sort of a situation. And we don't need to place crazy burdens on them. So not saying they shouldn't be careful. I think we're all concerned about COVID and the transmission of the disease, but to lock them down is devastating to these small entrepreneurs.
Jenny Barrera, as president and CEO of Lift Fund, you're in touch with partners across the state and across the nation. What are other states doing, and what can be done at the state level here in Texas to help small businesses?
Thanks, Jonathan, and thank you, representatives, for being part of this panel today. It's so important. As we know, these are extraordinary times, and these small businesses, I would say one thing that they have all in common is that they're resilient. So they've had to pivot and try to do things differently and manage change very well within their own businesses. That being said, to Representative Rainey, when he speaks about businesses being closed, service, not only bars, but service-oriented businesses were mandated to close, right? I mean, so the stimulus money, the CARES money that have come in this year has been a life-saving, piece to all our small businesses. If in the PPP loan, be able to keep employees. Some were furloughed, but others were able to keep. With the CARES money, we worked with so many municipalities across our great state of Texas. So as these cities and counties received CARES money, they looked to Lift Fund and organizations like ours to be able to provide those dollars, those grant dollars, into Lift Fund's hands. And then Lift Fund was then in charge of putting these grants back out into these small businesses. And in some counties, for example, in some cities, they specifically used CARES money to go directly to restaurants and bars because they knew that was being effective. So what can the state do? I'm hoping that as we go into 2021, there is additional dollars coming into our state in the form of the CARES money that our representatives here as small business persons know that can be then given directly to the small businesses so that they can keep their doors open and move our economy, keep moving our economy.
Blake Hastings, can you explain to us how the Federal Reserve assesses the role of small businesses in the economy and specifically the impact that small businesses have on the economy here in Texas?
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan. I also want to echo the appreciation to Janie and Selena for the invitation to be part of the panel today. At the Federal Reserve, we are acutely aware of the role that small business plays in the economy. In fact, early on in the pandemic, we began to sort of laser focus on not only the vulnerability that small businesses had to the pandemic and to the shutdowns and to the slowing of the economy, but the criticality of keeping those small businesses alive as long as we could. Selena said this a little bit at the beginning in her comments, over 50% of jobs in America are employed by small businesses. 2/3 of all job growth come from small businesses. So of the growth in jobs that we are seeing, it's not large businesses, but small businesses that are creating that. So when we begin to come out of this pandemic, which we will, we want to make sure that we have places for people to go back to work too. And so keeping small businesses alive has been something that we at the Dallas Fed have been very much focused on. We've been talking to lawmakers about the need for stimulus, which of course they did back in March with the CARES Act and the PPP program that Janie mentioned. We created our own lending facility, the PPP lending facility, to help banks take their PPP loans and bring them to us for additional liquidity and to enable them to make more PPP loans. So we've been doing everything we can as the nation's central bank to make sure that liquidity is flowing as much as humanly possible to small businesses to keep them afoot during this very, very difficult time. So to say that small businesses are critical to the economy, I think would be an understatement. They are sources of innovation. They are sources of creativity. And as Janie alluded to, they are some of the most resilient businesses that we have. And in times like this, that's exactly what you need. You need businesses that can turn their business models on a dime in order to serve the public. So as we go forward, we are particularly worried about the service sector small businesses that Janie mentioned. We've seen consumer spending on goods actually increase during COVID-19, but consumer spending on services has declined pretty precipitously. And so things like hotels and restaurants and bars are particularly acutely being impacted. And we've also seen a disproportionate impact on small businesses owned by minorities and women. And so we're going to have to continue to make sure we do everything we can, whether it be through monetary policy or through fiscal policy, both state, local, and federal, to keep our small business infrastructure in place so that we have a thriving economy when we come out of COVID.
I want to turn back to the representatives. We're headed into a legislative session that most people couldn't have conceived of not very long ago. We're going to have a new House Speaker. The revenue projections are a moving target. Don't know what kind of budget you're going to have to work with. We hope that the economy is recovering, but we don't know how long that's going to take. What do you see ahead as we head into this legislative session? And what are the priorities that you're hearing from the leadership in the House? And let me start with Representative Rainey.
Well, I think that we're going to have a peculiar session. We don't even know who's going to be allowed in the building, how we're going to have our hearings. A lot of that is going to be determined by the rules that we write shortly after we elect the speaker. I think it's going to be primarily a session that has to do with budget and also the redrawing of the districts after the census. It's going to be interesting from the standpoint that we need to make sure we take care of the good things that we did last session with education funding. And I think that's the one that I keep hearing the most, that let's do that. How we're going to do it, that's a big question. I've served on appropriations 3 different sessions, and the one thing that most people don't realize is that only 17% of that budget has any flexibility in it, because the rest of it is dedicated. It's either dedicated by fund or the taxes are dedicated to go to a specific thing. So we have some big hurdles, but I really believe that because nearly everyone I'll just say everyone who serves in the House is there for the right reason. They're there to make sure that we do the best we can for the state of Texas. We may have a little different of opinion on how we do that, but we are there for the purpose of making sure that Texas has a growing economy, and that's my key element. Is let's make sure we continue to grow.
Representative Morales.
Yes, thank you. So I'm looking forward to working with the new presumptive speaker, Dave Phelan. I endorsed him early on, and in the short visit that I've had with him already, I know his family is very important to him, and he's a hard worker. So looking forward to that piece and working with my colleagues such as Representative Rainey. We will be working on a very tight budget. Redistricting is, these are our priorities as we go in, because we will be very limited as to the legislation that we can work on. I know it's going to be very streamlined. But I am, just as my colleague said, Representative Rainey, education, I believe, is going to be one of the priorities, especially with everything that we did last session. And the digital divide has already garnered a lot of bipartisan support, which is very exciting to me, because many students in the district that I represent lacked access to Wi-Fi and technology. So they have been behind for several months, and that's going to affect the future of Texas. We do need an educated and a skilled workforce in the coming years, and so we really need to address the digital divide. Internet and technology are no longer a luxury. This has become a lifeline during the pandemic. So I'm very excited that we do have bipartisan support with the digital divide. The vaccine is coming out, and in the coming months, I hope that it can be distributed quickly and efficiently. I know that I'm already hearing that some folks are having reservations about taking a brand new vaccine. So personally, on my social media and the way I reach out to my constituents, I'll be sharing resources so that folks can educate themselves about how safe it is. but we do need leaders and influencers to take the vaccine so that the public feels comfortable taking it. But just as my colleague, Representative Rainey said, right now I'm preparing to move to Austin, but there are still many unknowns. And once we're all sworn in, we'll be able to vote on the rules and protocols. So it's really hard to say what that's going to look like. But it's last session, I came in very, very late in March, halfway through the session. And then this session, we're dealing with COVID. So, I was hoping for a little better experience this time around, but hopefully the next one.
Well, welcome to the legislature. Blake, the Fed does a tremendous amount of economic research. When you look at that data, what are your top concerns and what silver linings, if any, do you see for the small business sector?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. In fact, as I alluded to before, small business is a big focal point for not only the Dallas Fed, but the Federal Reserve System as a whole. In addition to some of the research that you're alluding to that we do a lot of roundtable discussions with small businesses. In fact, Janie was a member of the San Antonio branch board of the Dallas Fed for a number of years, and she helped us often organize and bring some of her customers into these conversations. So, we are very attached to sort of the main street, if you will, of the economy, not just Wall Street, as a lot of people like to think. And what is our research telling us? Well, going into COVID-19, we knew that small businesses were particularly vulnerable to any sort of a loss in revenue. In fact, only about 1 out of 5 healthy small businesses, according to our research going into COVID, had enough savings and liquidity to survive a 2 to 3 month sort of outage, revenue outage, as we were going in back in March into the pandemic. And only about 44% of small businesses that we surveyed had actually taken out a loan from a bank in the last 5 years. So 56%, that means 56% didn't have the banking relationships in place. So even when PPP was announced and put out there, many small businesses didn't have the banking relationships going in to even take out a PPP loan. And so that proved to be, I think, quite troublesome and problematic. Another set of forces that were going on prior to the pandemic, and Representative Morales just talked about this. We've spent a lot of time at the Dallas Fed researching technology-enabled disruption and what that's doing to the economy. Prior to COVID-19, what we were seeing is an increasing trend of technology disrupting businesses. As new businesses came on board with new business models enabled by technology, they were disrupting sort of antiquated business models. And you were seeing a lot of job disruption created by that, a lot of technology replacing jobs as well. And that was really placing a strain, not only on small businesses to adjust and adapt, but it was placing a huge strain, as Representative Morales indicated, on workforce development and skills training. And we were already saying, prior to COVID-19, that a premium had to be placed on workforce development and skills training. Along comes a pandemic, COVID-19, and all we have seen is those trends accelerate. COVID-19 has basically taken the technology-enabled disruption that might have taken 4 or 5 years and compressed it into 9 months. So you heard Representative Morales talk about the need to acquire equipment and other things so that her business could continue to operate in a virtual setting. You're starting to see that more and more. So one of the bad news stories is a lot of the jobs that have been lost during COVID-19 won't come back. Businesses have been resilient. They're finding new ways to do more with less, using technology. And so one of the big concerns we have at the Fed is that as we come back, not only will there be small businesses to come back with, because we've lost quite a number already, but will the job market will be the same, particularly in the small business environment, or will there be fewer jobs because we're using more technology? So these are some of the things that we're beginning to struggle with. Just in El Paso alone, we've seen 29% of small businesses go out of business since the start of the pandemic. And we're not done yet. That could continue. The good news is a lot of those entrepreneurs have indicated they will come back. They would like to come back and start new businesses. And so we need to do everything, whether it be at the legislative level or in monetary policy, working with banks to make sure that we create an environment that's good for those entrepreneurs to set shop back up and to begin employing some of our Texans once again. Additionally, we need to make sure that we've got access to the banking system for these small businesses. That's going to be very vital as we go forward. That was certainly a weak spot, and as we talk about digital divide, I think this is an issue that Representative Morales talked about. We do a lot of research on digital divide. And again, the pandemic has just accelerated that divide or made it even more stark for those who have access versus those who don't, whether it be simply being able to go to school in an online virtual environment or conduct your business, whether it be from home or what have you in an online environment. Those that have access are going to fare much better than those who don't. So this has definitely exposed a lot of weaknesses that were existing already in the economy, whether it be the workforce issues because of technology disruption, or whether it be digital access and those kinds of things. So as we go forward, the silver lining is this, Jonathan. The good news is that, as Janie said, these small businesses are resilient. And we have seen going into the crisis back in March and April, we were talking to a lot of small businesses on a daily basis. Most were telling us they had the resources to survive maybe 60 to 90 days. Mm-hmm. Fast forward now to December, many of those businesses that thought they could only survive 60 to 90 days are still around, and they're still kicking, and they're doing fairly well. Yes, they've had to lay off workers, but they're surviving, and that's the most important thing, because as we come out of the pandemic, the more small businesses that are still in place, the more job opportunities that we'll be able to get people back to more sooner. The more that go out of business, the longer it's going to take us to recover, because we will have to rebuild those businesses from scratch, and that will just take a lot longer as we go forward. What we've also learned is, in addition to being resilient, these small businesses have become incredibly efficient and resourceful. That's good for the economy overall. More efficiency is always a good thing, but it's also good for the customer at the end of the day, because that means small businesses are able to provide their services or their products with lower overhead, lower costs, meaning they can pass on savings to their customers. So that's good overall. And I'm very hopeful in talking to the Hispanic Chamber, the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, that even though roughly 30% of their members have gone out of business, a big number of them do plan to come back. And I think that's one of the other silver linings, and a lot of these entrepreneurs will come back. And Texas being a pro-business state, I think what it can do is continue to make sure it stays pro-business, particularly for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who want to come back, and make sure we're doing what we can to help small businesses with workforce training, because they can't do it on their own. They're going to need public health with help with some of this.
Janie,
Go
ahead.
I was just going to add on to that, because as I hear our panel talking, it's two things that I'm hearing. Education is so important, and the digital divide. And I'm hoping that our definition of education can be broader, not only schools, but it could be education with small businesses as well. And the digital divide to include small businesses. As we heard earlier, when the PPP dollars and the CARES money dollars came through, the very small businesses, I'm talking about 5 employees or 10 employees or smaller or less, they had a hard time applying for these dollars, because either they were not tech savvy, or they didn't, the way that the rules were set up in the PPP, for example, if you were a sole proprietor, and if you weren't giving yourself a check every single week or month or whenever, you couldn't qualify for those PPP loans, right? So it's just the way that it was written. So we could learn from our lessons as you all go into this next legislative year, that those kinds of issues are addressed. And then in terms of digital divide too, for the small business, when they've had to pivot, right, because they were shut down and they could have gone online, they didn't know how. They don't know how to sell that product online. And so those are the kinds of education that we need to put forth in terms of ideas to continue to grow the economy.
Well,
I
Janie,
want to add to that. If I could, I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that, Janie. Yes, education for our small business owners, especially our vulnerable small business owners, our mom and pops. I was very, very fortunate that I participated in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And it really gave me so much confidence. I did tell other small businesses about that program, but it's not always easy because of, the virtual, the digital divide that we just talked about. So we definitely need to work on making sure that our small business owners have access to this kind of education and making sure they're prepared for something like this. I mean, this has really been an eye opener, and no telling what the future holds for us. So we need to make sure that even our smallest minority owned businesses are resilient, and we provide the resources that they need. Thank you.
Representative Rainey, you talked about the need for people to shop local. I know from personal experience down in the Rio Grande Valley, where they're getting a double whammy from both COVID and the border closures, that there are retail districts that are just where the storefronts are papered over, the malls are empty. And that's true, I know, in other parts of the state as well, where small businesses just can't be open or can't afford to be open right now. So you talked about bars and restaurants, and I'm wondering on the retail side, is there anything that could be done to help those small businesses as well?
Well, I think that we're just going to have to get the economy back open, and that's going to be a result of the vaccines and a slow process, because we've got to have people moving around in order for this to work. There is one other area of education that I want to go back to, because Representative Morales was talking about needing a workforce. And one of the things that we need more is a career in technical education. Most of that comes through community colleges or through Texas State Technical Institute, which, by the way, does an excellent job. But we have developed a CTE center in our public schools here in Bryan, and I think we're going to have more of that elsewhere. The problem is it's limited to the enrollment. Like the welding program, for instance, they can only take 20 students at a time because of the size of their program. And these are areas where several years ago I was told that the average age for a plumber was 62 years old. I don't think it's changed a whole lot. We need people who can do these kind of jobs, and that is where the entrepreneurial spirit of a person who goes into that line of work can open up their own plumbing business and really be successful. I want to encourage people to think about something other than a college education, but to think about education that is where they use their hands, because I think it's something that's going to grow tremendously and provide us with the workforce that will allow us to expand our economy.
So I'd like to add to that, if I could. I think Representative Rainey is on to something really important there. For several years, we've been noticing at the Dallas Fed this shrinkage in the workforce pool for a lot of the jobs that Representative Rainey is talking about, whether it be welders or pipe fitters or plumbers, electricians, you name it. They are good paying jobs, particularly if you look in the energy patch. We've always had shortages of workers with these skill sets. But I would take it even a step further. I think the idea of really looking at community colleges and technical schools as being sort of the point of the spear of this workforce development challenge is the right sort of way to look at this. According to our math, again, going back to the research we do on technology-enabled disruption, the average kid graduating from college today, whether it be a technical school or a four-year college, will have his or her job disrupted at least 6 times during their careers by technology. What does that mean? That means the idea that your formal education is done by the age of 25 and you're set for life, that is gone. We now have to become lifelong learners. And 4-year schools can play a role, but 2-year schools and technical programs are really going to be the point of the spear in helping us address these technical challenges. So even when you look at the type of what we used to call blue collar type of jobs that Representative Rainey was talking about, which we have shortages of workers for those good paying jobs, even in some of the more technical.
So One issue that we haven't talked about is what's happened to the energy industry in Texas over the last 9 months. The energy industry has been tremendously impacted, and so there are a lot of folks who were working in that industry who are looking for new skills, new career pathways. Of course, the severance taxes, that's a big source of revenue for the state that affects the budget. So I want to go to Representative Morales. Sticking with this workforce development theme, is there anything particular or specific that's being discussed to address the energy industry and to help try to retrain and help folks who are out of jobs in that industry find new jobs?
I haven't been a part of any discussions, but I can tell you, I echo everything that was just said about our community colleges, because this is going to be a place that people look to find new skills, new employment, and become entrepreneurs in whatever they decide to learn. I know our family has been a part of this community for many, many years, and we provide scholarships, not to the 4-year university, but we've been providing scholarships to the 2-year programs at Houston Community College. And we've even started scholarships for single parents, because we know that a lot of times it's hard for them to get a leg up and learn a skill. So we want to encourage that. My son, he was actually a auto technician, and during this pandemic, he really lost a lot of business. So he's back in school right now, I'm proud to say, and he's going to learn a new skill. And I think we're going to see that across the board in many industries, especially our oil and gas industry. It's going through a tough time right now, but I know that it is resilient too, and it's not going away tomorrow. We're still going to rely on our oil and gas industry for many years to come. So definitely, I think our community colleges and all these workforce programs are going to be very, very important in the coming year, and to get us through this uncertain time and to recharge our economy.
Janie, you're in touch with small business owners on a daily basis. You talked about the experiences some of them have had with the PPP loans. Blake talked about the lack of having those banking relationships really handicap some of the small business owners. What else are you hearing from small business owners about the challenges that they faced over the last 10 months and what they need to succeed?
Sorry. First of all, I don't think, and I didn't think myself either, that back in March it was going to be this long, that we would still be going through this. So it kind of was like a wake-up call with these small businesses. How do I manage to stay alive through this whole process? And so, change management has been one of the things that they look at. They don't see it as a negative thing. They see it as a positive thing. In some cases, they've actually become leaner and efficient so that they can continue in their business. I've actually heard too from one small business owner in Houston who said, that he was in the catering business. He doesn't know, he's still going to be in business in 2021. He says he and his wife are talking about it. It may not just be a catering business, but to Blake's point, people are entrepreneurial, and if what their product is right now that is not being available or made available, or people can't take advantage of, then they're going to find something else. So other examples would be like a woman in San Antonio had a dog walking business. Well, guess what? Everybody's at home and they're walking their own dogs. So what does she do? She, pumps up her website and starts doing training, for dogs online. And which she had never done before, and also selling products online. And so it's just being, not giving up. That's what I hear a lot of the small businesses saying. They're not giving up. They're going to find a way to use their learnings to be able to to make their businesses stronger. And, you know, there's all sorts of examples of people that, you know, are getting help from their banks when they do have a relationship with the banks, because the banks want to get paid back. So they're trying to figure out ways of helping them become advisors to the small businesses. At Lift Fund, what we're also doing is, I was just amazed. I was looking at our numbers. We helped in 2019 numbers over 2020 numbers. In 2020, this is weird, but we've helped 1,000 people, new people more in terms of technical assistance than we did in 2019. How is that possible when you can't leave your home, or, you know, you can't be out face to face? It's because we're using technology. You know, we're able then to connect to people. Like today, we're in front of hundreds of folks right now who probably would have never been able to, you know, get them away from their lunch hour to go and see somebody face to face, but they can listen to us and be, you know, we can have a brown bag with, you know, at home or wherever it is. So people have just been more, you know, more creative and I think better for it.
We have
just something, Jonathan, to add to that. You know, one of the things that really has surprised me, another silver lining, I talked about the efficiency that Jenny was alluding to. You know, businesses are learning how to do more with less. I've been surprised how many small businesses have told us in our you know, research, and told us in our roundtables, they're having record profit years. Yeah. And that's hard to wrap your brain around at first, but when you listen to it and you think about it, it makes some sense. They have been resilient, they've adapted, they've adjusted. Their revenues are down, but they've reduced their costs by even more. And so their bottom line has actually been improved. And many of those small businesses tell us, we won't go back to the business model pre-COVID. When we come out of COVID-19, we're going to keep a lot of the changes we made to our business model because we like the profitability aspect of that. So, you know, in a strange, almost kind of twisted way, this whole episode is going to make a lot of the small businesses that do survive this that much stronger and profitable and well-positioned coming out of COVID to even be a greater economic engine for job recovery. So just something to think about.
All right. Well, at this point, we're going to turn it back over to Selena, who has audience questions that she's going to ask our panelists to address. So Selena.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. We've got several questions. This one I'm going to pose to our state representatives, Mr. Rainey and Ms. Morales. How are you all working with the federal government, not just the Reserve, for another stimulus package?
Well, I guess I'd go first. I don't know that we're doing anything particular in that regard, but I think we need to encourage the federal government does what the federal government does, and the way they get along up there in Congress is pretty tough. We do such a better job here in Texas in getting along with the other side. I have no problem in walking across and talking with someone from the Democrat Party because they're there for the same reason I am. So I just wish that Washington would forget politics every once in a while and think about what the out.
I agree with my colleague. It's very political right now. Unfortunately, so many people are suffering, but you know, all we can do is talk to our Congress people and you know, be supportive of what they're trying to do. We've sent letters in the past, but if anybody gets them, but yeah, we'd like to see something come through very quickly.
Thank you both. On another question, Janie, I'm going to punt this one to you, if that's okay. How does a business owner connect with PPP if their bank is unable to help them?
Well, first of all, there's no more PPP money. So the guidance I'm about to give is that when, I'm going to say that, we do receive additional PPP funds, you're going to be ready. And so this year, I'm hoping that in 2020, if you are a sole proprietor, you have been paying yourself. Because if they leave the reg as is, you're going to have to put into your Schedule C. There's a certain line item there that addresses your income. And if it shows little in income because you've been taking money and putting it somewhere else in terms, not that you're not getting paid, but you're covering costs rather than getting a salary, you need to have a salary. That's the very first thing, so that you can record, so that you are helping your business because you have those salaries. That's number one. Number two is that you have a banking relationship now that you can call your banker and say, if there is more stimulus money, please know that I'm interested in getting the funds. Number three, if you don't have a banking relationship and you're a customer of Lift Fund, I'm assuming that Lift Fund will get an additional dollars to provide in PPP loans, call Lift Fund or your other CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, that's there and available. If you don't fit any of those categories, you can still apply with Lift Fund for a PPP loan. It'll take a little bit longer, but if you're an existing Lift Fund customer now, it'll go much faster. So that's my advice to the small business owners out there that want to take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. And just keep good financial records. That's just the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Janie.
Mm-hmm.
Blake, a question as it relates to what small business industries have been most impacted with closures?
Yeah, I think there's been definitely sort of a bifurcation, if you will, in experience in the economy from industry to industry. Those that are winning, and those that are coming out behind. As I said before, if you're in the production of goods, if you're making products that people buy, consume, chances are you're doing okay, you're doing well. In fact, we've seen, as I said earlier, consumer spending on goods actually increase during COVID-19. What does that mean? It means people stayed home and they ordered stuff online or virtually or curbside pickup or whatever it might have been. So, but if you're in the service sector, you've definitely been hit. And there's some service sectors even more so than others. And I mentioned a few of them before. If you're in the hotel, motel business, you've definitely seen a roundtable of local hotel owners here in San Antonio. Every one of them had their revenues off by 60+%. Their occupancy rates were around the teens, 18, 19%. Some of them a little bit better. Interestingly enough, if you were downtown, you were worse off than if you were out in the suburbs, if you were a hotelier. Similarly, restaurants and bars. Bars, we know, Representative Rainey, I talked about the experience bars are having, but even restaurants have had some pretty serious adjustment period here with either closed, for a period of time, their dining rooms were closed, or they had reduced capacity. First it was 25%, then 50%. So yeah, those sectors have definitely taken it on the chin. Some of them been able to adjust, like restaurants have gone to a lot of curbside and online and delivery type options. But if you're in a bar, you can't really do that. If you're in a hotel, that's difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And we do think that as COVID passes, we will see the leisure traveler start to come back pretty quickly. People are tired of being cooped up, or all the things we're hearing is leisure travel will probably bounce back. What may not bounce back is business travel. Because businesses have gone online, they've done virtual meetings, and they're starting to discover maybe we don't need to spend as much on travel and what have you. So we worry that the business travel business may be much slower to come back. So those are some of the highlights. The energy sector, it's held up pretty well. It's been hit. It was being hit before COVID, mm-hmm. and it's being hit now. One of the things we worry about with the survivability of energy businesses is access to credit. It was difficult to get a loan if you were in the energy business prior to COVID. It's impossible now. And the capital markets are the same way. They've kind of shut down their willingness to make investments into the energy sector. That will pass because at some point we'll be in an energy undersupply situation. And as we look at it, that could happen as soon as a year or 2 years from now, which of course will cause prices to rise and act as a natural stimulant to recovery in the energy sector. But those are some of the most hard hit. If it's travel, if it's leisure, they've been hard hit. Retail, not quite as hard. If you were able to pivot to online, you did better. If you weren't, you've obviously fared worse. But that's pretty much been the story across not just the Texas economy, but the nation as a whole.
Thank you, Blake. One of the questions in terms of thinking about 2021, and I'll end with this for each of you to respond to, is what small business trends should we be paying attention to from your vantage point? So Blake, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll go first. I think there's several things that I would be looking for. Prior to COVID-19, we had seen a worrying trend of new business formation actually slowing quite a bit in our country. I think one of the things to watch is we know we're going to lose a lot of small businesses. We already have, but watching new business formation in the United States will be, I think, a key leading indicator to how quickly we're going to recover from COVID, from the economic downturn caused by COVID-19. And so watch that, watch the trend of new small business startup formation. And then also watch the hiring trends in small business activity. Again, a lot of small businesses figured out how to do more with less. It'll be very interesting to see if small businesses continue to be the engine of new job growth that they were prior to COVID. If that falters or new business startup formation falters, then that could suggest a more protracted recovery in terms of job recovery. So those would be the things that I would watch for from a small business perspective.
Thank you, Blake. Representative Rainey.
Well, I don't know what the trends will be, but I can tell you this. If small business doesn't get active in what's going on in Washington, and more especially what's going on in their local community and at the state level, then they're going to be left behind. And I encourage all small businesses, for instance, if you're a retailer, as I am, belong to the Texas Retailers Association. Engage in what they're doing. You'll learn a lot of things, and you may even get some benefits from it, besides the political benefit. Get to know your state representative, get to know your state senator, know your city council members and your school board. Every one of those people is important for you to know, so that when you have a problem, you can go to them and talk to them with ease. I think that communication is a key to all of our survival, and the best way to communicate is to get to know people. I even tell people, work in campaigns. It doesn't make any difference. Work in a campaign. Meet somebody new. Put a sign in your yard. Talk to somebody that can help you down the line, and then use those connections sparingly, but use them.
Great advice. Representative Morales.
I wish I had some good answers for that, but a lot of the online businesses or things you can purchase through Facebook, and just supporting local, as my colleague Representative Rainey said earlier, we really need to focus on our small businesses and have more shop local days. But I loved seeing a lot of the drive-by events, and somebody was making these huge signs. I'm like, how did they do that? So there's a lot of creative businesses out there. There were so many people sewing masks. My tailor actually told me that he survived this pandemic because people weren't getting their clothes altered anymore. But he said he was making masks for the hospitals, and he said he was so busy, he couldn't keep up with all the orders. So yeah, I think just being creative, and we're going to see some really cool things pop up in 2021.
Thank you, Representative Morales. Janie, would you like to chime in here as our closing panelist?
Sure. Shanti was a panelist this earlier, and she's a small business owner in Dallas. And she made a comment that 2020 is supposed to be a perfect year. And I said, what do you mean? And she says, well, the same, you have 2020 vision because it's perfect vision, or hindsight is 2020, so on. And so as I was reflecting on that in terms of trends, what we saw in 2020, I think is going to become even bigger in 2021. What that means are lessons learned, the things that we've changed for the better in our small businesses. The example that Representative Morales just said about her tailor, I can think of locally, there was a salon that does nails, and he was shut down for a while. What did he do? His folks went and started making masks as well. But eventually what happened, we were able to go back and get our nails done. Why? Because we found a way to be able to comply with the rules and regulations. And, we're flexible, we can pivot. We just wear our mask. The people that are doing our nails are wearing the plastic things on top of it. And so it can be done. And that is because we don't take no for an answer. We say, okay, how best can I grow my small business to make it better than it was? And so I think that trend is going to stay there. And to everybody else's points earlier, I think Blake said, business travel is going to be down, right? But we're going to bet you we're going to do more business and different kinds of businesses. Networking is going to be different. So I'm excited about 2021. I'm excited about the fact that our legislators are going to be there working hard for us because we all know that they want the best for the citizens of our great state of Texas. So thank you all. I know, Selena, I'm going to throw it back to you because you're closing us out, but I just wanted to thank everybody for participating today.
I echo that, Janie, as well. Thank you all for being with us today in a really critical time, not only for Texas, but also for our nation. As I reflected earlier, and as Janie and all of us have reflected on the challenges of 2020, what we know here at Lift Fund is small businesses matter. And with that, we believe they are not only essential to our economies and to our families, but as Blake and so many of you have reflected, is also on their employees and their customers and their neighborhoods and their communities. There may be many uncertainties in 2021, but we are hopeful that we are better equipped, as Janie had said, to face the challenges that no doubt are still ahead of us, and that we can do it together. As Representative Rainey reflected, to me, it's like meet other people. And today it's very innovative on how you meet people. But at the same time, those relationships can lead us to what we ask and call to action, a couple of things. One, and he already said this, was reach out to your state representative, reach out to your local electeds and tell them your story. And if you don't have a story to share about a small business, tell them about your family and how it is important to shop local. Also, think about other ways to advocate for small business. As Representative Morales reflected, buy local. There's so many ways, the coffee maker now has the bean package, buy the beans with the coffee. There are ways to be innovative to help each other grow. The other item is to join Lift Fund's movement. We believe that leveling the financial playing field for small businesses is critical. And we ask you to join not only today, but in the future as 2021 is upon us to grow, shop, support small business today. You make a difference with these small movements, and it doesn't have to be every day, but we welcome them every day as well. With that, I want to thank John Gerwitz for leading us and navigating us through this conversation. We want to thank today's sponsors, SWBC, Broadway Bank, and Trans-Pecos, for being a part of this process. And we want to wish you a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you all for joining us today. Be well.